So I know some of you might be sitting here right now going, "What is Tim doing?" Like his channels, like RPGs, MMORPGs, video games, TV shows, pop culture, reviews, books, sci-fi, fantasy, and suddenly he's talking about Egypt's new billion-dollar museum that's fit for a pharaoh. What's going on? Is this video even going to hit the algorithm? I don't know. It might not. But I don't really care because I like to do lots of different things. And some of you who have been around for a while already know this, but some of the newer members might not. For many years, my day job was in travel. Travel writer, travel photographer, travel videographer, worked a lot of marketing gigs. My wife and I were influencers in the travel industry space for around a decade, working with some of the biggest travel brands in the industry. We were public speakers, also just going around the world working with some of the biggest tourism boards. And travel is something that has always been a big part of our lives until the last few years when we decided to stop traveling and focus on game dev and YouTube and everything else. So 2017 was our last big contract. We ended up the year in Ireland working for a month with the Falter Island team. We did a speaking gig at the TBEX conference that was there in Killarney, and then we just did a whole month in the country and shot a bunch of drone footage and worked with Ireland Blue Book and a bunch of other companies. And that was it. That was all she wrote. After that, we moved to Mexico City, spent several years there, just focused on game dev. Then we bought our home, our homestead, and moved to where we are now. And that's what we've been working on since March of 2022 is this. But travel still holds a big place in my heart. And this is actually something that I've been watching develop over many years now, and I think it's an exciting look at what a country can do to celebrate its culture and really dive into the uniqueness of what its culture has to offer the world and what they did offer to the world, for I mean, when you look at ancient civilizations, you've got the Greeks, the Romans, definitely the Egyptians. And there's a lot of mythology around the Egyptian culture and history. There's a lot of fact. There's a lot of fiction. There's a lot of cool stuff. But without a doubt, this is something I've been watching unfold over quite a few. I want to say I've been kind of following this for about 6, 8 years now, and it's finally basically getting to the point where it's done. And National Geographic recently pushed a video out, there are videos out, but an article out about this. And I just want to go through this with everybody because I think it's really, really cool. So basically, the Grand Egyptian Museum is a monumental showcase for all 5,000 of King Tut's treasures and a symbol of a nation that has reclaimed its past. This is a great article if you haven't already gone through this. And I'm not going to read the entire thing because it has a massive, massive piece, but I would highly urge you to do so at your leisure. Is there a dark mode for this? I probably should have turned it on. No dark. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Whew, I should have turned that on before I subjected everyone to the bright glare. I apologize. In any case, um, the new Egyptian museum is not typical. It is so big that it just kind of makes other museums look paltry in comparison. It says closer up, the museum's exterior is covered in pyramid motifs echoing the pyramids of Giza that rise a little more than a while away. The design may be disoriented, but the message is clear. This is a museum fit for a pharaoh. Um, Major General Atef Mofta is the director. Um, anyway, this is a project that began around 20 years ago. For me, I think I first started, like I said, I've been following it about 6, 8 years, but I first remember hearing about it. It's been at least a decade ago when they first started talking about um, this project. And it's really interesting because Egypt is a lot like, I'd say Mexico is the same way in a sense. It's a nation that's dependent upon tourism revenue. Although the types of tourism revenue that come in are slightly different because with Mexico, a huge portion of the nation's tourism revenue comes in from the Riviera Maya, Puerto Vallarta, but mostly the Riviera Maya. You've got all the resorts there. But throughout the country, you've got all these Mayan ruins that pull in a lot of tourism dollars. And Egypt is the same way in that they have the pyramids, which are a major draw, but also beyond that. Um, it seems like every month there's a new excavation taking place, and it says including this one in the dig in the shadow of the pyramids at Giza. The new GM, located within sight of the famous monument, celebrates the country's rich cultural heritage as never before. Um, these are the kind of things that fascinate me. You've got these treasures from King Tut's tomb. It says they were recently kept at the cramped Egyptian Museum in Cairo, which first opened in 1902. That's more than 100 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Fascinating stuff. Um, for a little bit of background on me and one of the reasons I think this is so much fun to pay attention to. When I was a kid, I think archaeology was the thing that most interested me more than anything else. The Indiana Jones films in particular were just like so amazing. I know they're not historically accurate, but they were just fun movies. And when I was a teenager, the only thing I wanted to do was go to the University of Aberdeen in Aberdeen, Scotland, and get my degree in archaeology and also Gaelic and Celtic history. And I wanted to really dive into the Gaelic, Celtic archaeology and history because a lot of my favorite authors around the time that I was a mid teenager were in that genre. So I was reading a lot of, kind of King Arthur, uh, you know, Celtic mythology stuff that really had me focused on, man, it would be really cool to be an archaeologist and combine archaeology with writing, historical fiction. That was really what I was focused on. And ultimately, I ended up writing fantasy fiction and science fiction, but archaeology has always been something that has fascinated me as an individual. And I've been lucky enough and blessed enough in all the years that I spent traveling to go to a lot of really cool sites. And even though I wasn't actually doing any archaeology, being able to be there and do hands-on research at least scratched that itch for me in a way that I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to make a reality. And so looking at things like this where you have treasures from thousands of years ago that have been preserved through the passage of time is something that I think is worth celebrating, and this museum is a really, really cool thing. Um, I do remember this. You remember in April 2021, they did a state-sponsored Pharaoh's Golden Pyramid when they took 22 royal mummies, which were placed on customized vehicles tricked out to evoke ancient funeral barges, which went from the old Egyptian museum through the streets of Cairo to the new National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. They were then greeted by the president, and received a 21 gun salute. It was a really cool thing if you didn't pay attention to that. Look at this. Look at this. That's just, oh, all right. So this is the director of the GEM's state-of-the-art conservation labs, briefs a team of conservators on aspects of Tutankhamun's outer coffin. Such cool stuff. Oh, I think that archaeology and things of this nature, where we're dealing with artifacts that have been stored for hundreds of years in some cases because they haven't ever been able to be on display properly, this is going to be something that brings in tons of tourism for the country, and that's never a bad thing. Um, I think when you look at those are right. This is it says Salima Ikram, professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo, examines a tiny coffin made from mummified shrew. She says for the ancient Egyptian, no animal was too small to be ignored, and each occupied a very particular place in the cosmos. And I just love this picture because behind her you can see all of these artifacts and this book in front of her and everything that's been studied and documented over the years. And it's fascinating stuff to me to look at the way they um, mummify the remains. It says here, this image is a team of geneticists led by Yahya Gad, which are examining the mummy of an unidentified boy in the tomb of Pharaoh Amenhotep II. Pioneer in the DNA analysis of ancient mummies, Gad is studying examples or samples from King Tutankhamun and his extended family. Really cool stuff. Look at those ruins. And the Stargate film. I mean, Stargate is one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time, which heavily steeped in Egyptian mythology, along with a healthy dose of science fiction. But I think it's one of those films where you can't deny the fact that it harkens back to some of the mythological components of the Egyptian pyramids and how were they built and who built them and all this other stuff. Um, Fascinating, truly fascinating stuff here. Scroll down a little bit more. Um, I think that was the end of this. But I would say that anyone who has an interest in archaeology and museums as a whole, I know some people don't like museums. Some people think that museums are boring. Um, I would say you've never been to really cool museums. And this is one where I honestly have never been to Egypt. Egypt has been on Chris and I's list for a long time. Chris, I think her number one destination is Japan. She really wants to go to Japan. And for me, Egypt has been up there for a long time. It's one of the few places I haven't gone that I really wanted to be. I've been very blessed in that I think I've pretty much seen and gone to every item location that was on my bucket list, with the exception of Egypt. Everything else I ever wanted to see and do, I pretty much did during my travel career, travel writing career. And I think my favorite to date was I loved Rome. Rome is just probably my favorite of all time. London is up there. Um, Not for the modernities that these cities offer, but the fact that these cities are based upon thousands of years of history, and you just if you just keep digging down, the further you dig, I mean, it's like, let's go, we're gonna put a new subway tunnel in, and oh, now we found six new levels of the city, and we found these ancient ruins and these other things, and now we have to divert and uh, the tunnels, and now we have to do this thing. I remember when I was living in Sofia, Bulgaria, they were digging for the subway, and it's another city that's been there for thousands of years. And when you've got a city that's got 6, 8, 10,000 years of history behind it, and you start digging down, you're just going down through the layers and layers and layers of history, and you start uncovering all these things. And I remember one of the things they did was they basically found a ruin that was going to go right where the tunnel was going to be, and so they decided to just build out and excavate around and make that into like an underground plaza, where the subway stop was going to be there, and then you get off the subway and get off the metro, and you're surrounded by these ancient ruins, and then there's shops and restaurants and all this other stuff. And it was a really cool concept. I don't know if that ever came to fruition because I haven't been back in several years. Um, in any case, this is a different thing for my channel. I realize that a lot of you may be confused by this, and that's cool. I like to randomly throw out things that are part of my personal enjoyment and personal existence, and this is one of those things because I have an affinity for travel, and this gives me yet another reason to want to go to Egypt now, above and beyond just. I mean, I think the next time Chris and I go out on the road, we've always done what I call immersion travel. So we typically will go and we'll spend at least 1 month, if not 3 months, usually is the preferable amount of time that we'll go somewhere. Is we like to spend about 3 months on the ground and really just immerse yourself in that local culture and local everything. And you'll pick a destination that's going to be your hub and rent an Airbnb, or if you're getting sponsored while you're there, you're staying with sponsored apartments and hotels. But then you just branch out from there and you just explore for 3 months. And it's all about, I mean, usually what we do is when we go on the ground, we'll be shooting 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week if the weather's good and depending on schedules, but we'll be shooting for like 6 days a week. And the objective is you're going to be shooting anywhere from 500 to 700 photos every single day, and shooting a couple hours of raw footage minimum every single day. And when you come back, you've got tens of thousands of photos and dozens of hours of raw footage that you can then create an infinite amount of content with. And then you've got like 3, 4, 5 years if you wanted to just steadily publish that stuff out on social media. You've just got tons of content. I have hard drives and hard drives, and I probably got 10 terabyte hard, like 10 different terabyte hard drives, I think. It's at least 8 or 10, I don't even know off the top of my head, that are just full of just travel photos and videos. Like the last trip we took to Ireland, I only had to produce one video for our contract. So we shot all this drone footage that I've never done anything with because we came back and we just decided to just quit doing the travel content and move into game dev. And so I never did anything with that drone footage. And so it's just been, we took like a 2 week road trip we did the entire Wild Atlantic Way. And I think we only ever produced like one video for our clients, and we did 4 or 5 articles for the hotels that we stayed with as part of the Blue Book program, and then the rest of it was just stuff that we never did anything with. And I have these hard drives that are just full of that content that's just sitting there, and it's pretty cool to have that and look back on. It's like this. Um, archival footage, similar to what they have with the museum, but theirs is way cooler. Anyway, I really am looking forward to getting to Egypt at some point. I think it's really cool that they've opened up this new museum. I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all those good things. I know this isn't like the type of content that I normally do on my channel, but hopefully you enjoyed it nonetheless. Support in any way you can. There's memberships and super thanks and all those good things. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully, you'll stick around because I'll do more stuff like this from time to time when I randomly say, hey, this is something I like and have an interest in. And it's not just related to video games and sci fi and fantasy TV shows, I promise. See ya.